welcome to Crime in Court. My name is Heather, and I'm excited to bring you a new case. It's already it's gone to trial, and this person is convicted and is doing time in prison. I believe he's been sentenced to, I remember that video popping up. Well, anyways, his first trial ended in a mistrial. Then his second trial began February 28th of 2023, so almost a year ago today, as I record this, which is actually Valentine's Day of 2024, so almost a year. And I watched the entire trial. I sat there and listened to all the evidence. I thought, at some points there could maybe be some, I looked at it with a very open mind. Let me start out by saying that. I said, I'm going to look at it without any judgments and trying to decide if he's guilty or not until the very end after I've heard all the evidence. And I did that. And I really felt that the state didn't prove it, but they didn't prove that he was guilty to me. And this is a no-body case. Again, another no-body case. This is Wisconsin versus the state of Zachariah Anderson. You can see that's Zachariah Anderson on the screen right there. And this, it's a very interesting case because, I looked at the case unbiasedly and I thought, okay, I don't know how the jury got there, but I can see kind of how they got there. So I didn't really think much later after the fact. But then, after doing more research and with the awesome work put forth by Zach's family, this website was built, and now you can see for yourself whether you think he's guilty or not. We're going to go through a lot of the evidence. We're going to go through the investigation, the timeline, the people, all of that. So first, today, we're going to go through the cast of characters really quickly, just the main ones that we want to focus on or that we want to look at pictures of. And then we're going to go on to the incident. So what is this case about? So that's going to be your overview, your info, your background, all the information you need going forward. So that's this episode. And then next episode, we're going to go into the timeline and really get to the nitty gritty by going through the timeline. So that's actually probably going to be 2 parts, I'm assuming, because there's a lot to get through. So, like I said, actually, I think it's this page that shows his family. Free Zachariah here. We are Zach's family. So let me read this first before we get into anything else. On March 22nd, 2023, Zachariah Anderson was wrongfully convicted of stalking, 2 counts of stalking, first-degree intentional homicide, and hiding a corpse in Kenosha, Wisconsin. He is currently serving a life sentence in prison as an innocent man. This is according to his family. You guys can decide for yourselves. That's why I bring you the information so you can look at it unbiasedly and decide. All right, so you might ask yourself how something like this could happen. His guilty verdict was a true miscarriage of justice created by a multi-layer system of failures, including a false accusation, a poor police investigation jaded by confirmation bias, a corrupt district attorney. We'll get into that. We'll get into a lot of this. A media campaign to taint the potential jury pool, a judge unfit to stand trial, and a handful of witnesses willing to perjure themselves or for their own gain. All systems designed to protect and serve gobbled him up, stripped him of all ability to defend himself or maintain his innocence, and spit him out into a prison cell to waste away forgotten. But they were mistaken. We won't forget Zach. or we won't forget. Zach has a family that loves him, friends that adore him, and a small gang of people now working toward righting the wrongs that our criminal justice system created. Although they have already made Zach another statistic in the ever-growing pile of wrongful convictions, we refuse to stop fighting until he is once again a free man and those responsible for his wrongful conviction are held accountable. That will be justice served. So we're going to look into what happened, what he's accused of, all of it, and how he maybe got the raw end of the deal, we could assume. What page was I on before? Let's just hit the back button. Okay, yes, the cast of characters. Let's begin there. So, Zachariah Anderson is our defendant. He is currently convicted, as we said. He is convicted of stalking, 2 counts, first-degree intentional homicide, and hiding a corpse. Again, this is a no-body case. So what he did for a living was audio-visual maintenance contracting on the side. So he had a contracting business, and he had a van that he used, which we'll talk about in depth later, but he had a van that he used for carrying supplies, wood, Home Depot or Lowe's type of things, Menards type of stuff. I don't know, those kind of home improvement items. So that's what he would use this van for, was for lugging stuff around, and it's going to be part of the evidence, so that'll come into play later. The alleged victim, because we've never found a body, this is a missing person report. Anyone having information should contact the Kenosha Police Department. So on May 19th, 2020, the Kenosha Police Department responded to the 3700 block of 15th Street to investigate a report of a missing person. Rosalio Guitierrez Jr., 40 years old, resided at the location. He was last seen May 17th, 2020. Investigators found both of Guitierrez's vehicles in the parking lot. At the apartment, the patio door was open. Inside, there was a large amount of red DNA pooled up on the floor. Furniture had been moved around, and an area of the rug was missing. Or an area rug was missing. So he had an area rug on top of the rug that was there, and that area rug was missing. Guitierrez did not report to work on the 18th of May in 2020 or any subsequent days. So he was last seen and heard from May 17th. He was reported missing on the 19th of 2020. He was also, so just for reference, he was a 40-year-old male with a Hispanic heritage. His skin or hair color was black. His eye color was brown. He was 6 feet tall, and this is hard to read because it's tiny printing. You guys probably can't even read it. So that's what I was reading right now is the missing persons report. So he was 270 pounds at 6 foot tall, and he was missing from Kenosha. So according to this, Rosalio Guitierrez Jr., he is an alleged victim of stalking and homicide. Date and time of his homicide undetermined. Rosalio remained on the missing persons registry of Wisconsin for 3 years leading up to the trial until he was deemed deceased only by way of a jury vote. So that's kind of telling. This right here is Sadie Beecham, and this is how they're connected. So Sadie Beecham is the ex-partner of Zachariah Anderson. They have a daughter together. We will call her O, just for short. And O, and him and Sadie shared custody of O. And At this point, they had been separated, they shared custody, and Sadie was dating Rosalio for about 3 months, I believe, at this point in time. The details are a little blurry because the trial was a year ago for me to watch it, but I'm going to remember all the details as we go along, hopefully. So Zach is the ex-boyfriend of Sadie. Sadie's now dating Rosalio, and he goes missing. Here's the Judge Schroeder, just for reference when we start getting into the court documents. That's the Honorable Bruce E. Schroeder. He's the judge of Kenosha County Circuit Court, Branch 3. Here's the defense team: Nicole Moeller, John A. Birdsall, and Kirk B. Obear. So these are the three defending Zachariah. And in the trial, the second trial that took place, I'm sure they were his lawyers in the first one too. But they were excellent lawyers. I thought they did a good job. But it was, they had some tough breaks and some tough calls throughout the trial. And some possibly prosecution misconduct. I don't know. These are the prosecution team. Michael Gravely will read that after the first mistrial, the defense moves to remove him from the case, but it got denied, obviously, because he was the district attorney for prosecuting Zachariah Anderson in the long run. And then Jessica Krasaric, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but she's the assistant district attorney, or at least these two were district and assistant district attorneys during the time of Zachariah's trial. And we won't get into witnesses yet until we start getting more into the trial if we need to. So that's the cast of people that we need to maybe remember, or at least keep in mind as we go forward. The main three, obviously: Sadie, Rosalio, and the defendant, Zachariah Anderson. So we're going to move on to the actual incident. So what is he accused of? What is Zachariah Anderson accused of? Let's find out. So Zachariah Anderson, 39 years old at the time, lived in Mequon. You know what? Let me make that bigger so you guys can see. Sorry. It's even hard for me to see. I got bad eyes. Is that better? One more, I think. Okay, perfect. Good. All right, the incident. Zachariah Anderson, 39 years old at the time, lived in Mequon, Wisconsin, and had been in a 12 to 13 year long on and off relationship with Sadie Beecham. So remember that. Sadie Beecham and Zach had a 13-year off and on relationship. And now she's dating, Rosalio, after some fighting or whatever. But they've always been off and on, interestingly. Like, they always would somehow find their way back to each other. All right, so they have 3 children together, 1 girl and twin boys. Oh, I didn't know about the twin boys. I knew about the girl. Maybe the twin boys I forgot about because they were too young to have been witnesses, because the daughter was a witness in the case. She actually testified against her father. So they have 3 children together, 1 girl and twin boys. Around December of 2019, they broke up for good, but maintained frequent contact and shared custody of their children with no formal visitation schedule or child support order in place. In mid-February of 2020, Sadie met Rosalio Guitierrez Jr. on Facebook dating. So March 5th, 2020, Sadie texted Rosalio about what a jerk Zach was, and he encouraged her to begin a paper trail to prove Zach is unfit to the court so that she could get full custody of the children. She stated it might be hard, but she would try. One day later, on March 6th, 2020, is the first documented documented occasion of Sadie accusing Zach of keeping tabs on her through informants, quote unquote. Throughout the next couple months, Sadie continued to accuse Zach of stalking her, both to Zach directly as well as to her close friends. Zach repeatedly denied stalking or following her, and despite her accusations, they continue having questionably romantic interactions. So then why? What? He's stalking you, or so you say, but you're going to continue having a relationship with him? That doesn't make sense to me. E.g., example, Sadie inviting him over for dinner and asking why he didn't spend the night and calling each other their pet names. Zach told her, "You always refuse to say we are done. You refuse to say it's over." So it sounds like maybe she's playing some games with him. On Tuesday, May 19th, 2020, around 11 a.m., Sadie Beecham decided to do a wellness check on Rosalio because she hadn't heard from him in approximately 38 hours. She attempted to reach him via phone a number of times the previous day to no avail. Upon arriving to his apartment, she was able to look in from the patio door and saw red DNA in the living room, and the area rug was missing. There was no answer when she called Rosalio's name, so she called 911. Okay, so she's starting to accuse Zach of stalking her. And mind you, this is coming from Zach's family, and we don't know for sure if he was stalking her or not, but we'll find out, hopefully, through the evidence that they presented on this website that maybe he wasn't stalking her. So let's see. Let's find out. Anyway, so yes, she calls 911. Kenosha police arrived, and Sadie told the first responding officers that her ex-boyfriend was extremely upset she had been dating Rosalio and stated, quote, "I'm not saying he did something, but he could have," end quote. So you threw the police at him. Did you do that on purpose? Did you do something to Rosalio? Like, to get both of them off your back? I don't know. I mean, I'm not accusing her, but I'm just saying it sounds suspicious if she is still having relations with Zach and then accusing him of doing something to her ex. All right, so based on the blood found and Rosalio being missing, officers requested detectives to respond to the scene as well. Upon the arrival of the detectives, Sadie's accusations against Zach became more specific, now telling the detectives that she, quote, knew Zach had something to do with Rosalio's disappearance because of her belief that Zach was stalking her. She stated she believed Zach had been tracking her cell phone and hacking into it, and thought that he had been watching her because of strange comments he had made recently. She stated she would explain everything further, but needed to leave to pick up her children, who were with a friend. She stated she would return with her daughter, 12-year-old at the time, that's O, who we'll call O, to give statements because her daughter had pertinent information regarding the disappearance of Rosalio. That's what she said to detectives, that her daughter had pertinent information regarding the disappearance of Rosalio. Sadie then drove the hour plus home to get her daughter and drove another hour plus back to the police station with her daughter in tow. Sadie provided a statement detailing incidents where she believed Zach was spying on her and Rosalio and or tracking her whereabouts. Their daughter, A, gave similar statements, although many of the specific details conflicted with Sadie's, and she stopped the interview at least once to go ask her mom questions. Yikes. All right, so there's that. Within a few hours, Zach was taken in for questioning about the stalking allegations. He was not told that he was also being investigated with regard to the disappearance of Rosalio. He agreed to speak with police and tried to provide his own side of the story. Zach denied the allegations of stalking, but admitted that he had been doing some research into Sadie's behavior because he was concerned for the well-being of his kids. He told the detectives that he was concerned because approximately 6 months prior, Sadie had started frequenting bars often and possibly doing substances. He stated that all of his actions were to try to have the information necessary to obtain custody of his children. I mean, that kind of makes sense to me. Zach spoke with the detectives for a little over an hour and offered to give them a copy of his journal that he was keeping on his computer, stating that it might be beneficial to the stalking investigation. Detectives told him that they were already going to see his computer, and Zach became confused, stating he didn't know what was going on. Zach ended the interview by asking for a lawyer and was then arrested and booked into Kenosha County Jail on 2 counts of stalking, 1 count against Sadie and 1 count against Rosalio. Where's the proof that he was stalking them? All right, so on May 25th, 2020, 6 days into Zach's arrest, he was finally made aware that he was being investigated for a homicide when officers arrived to the jail with a warrant for his DNA. 7 months later, on December 11th, Zach was charged with first-degree intentional homicide and hiding a corpse after the Wisconsin Crime Lab claimed that the result from a pinhead-sized speck in Zach's van came back as a match to Rosalio's DNA. And that is inaccurate. That is not true. That is false. No DNA was found in Zach's van of Rosalio. None whatsoever. So they made some evidence up, I guess. All right, so on May 17th, 2020, Rosalio Guitierrez Jr. is theorized to have been unalived in his apartment in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Although neither his body nor any remains have ever been found to confirm that he is deceased, all calls and texts to his phone after 9:30 p.m. on May 17th remain unread and unanswered. So that gives you a good timeline. Based on the fact that he stopped using his cell phone after 9:30, the state of Wisconsin alleges that he was unalived sometime between then and 10 p.m. Rosalio's friends and family, so only a half-hour window? Why couldn't it have been a little bit before? I don't know. All right, like right before 9:30. I don't know. All right, so Rosalio's friends and family report that they hadn't heard from him since May 17th. However, there is zero evidence proving what time he may have actually gone missing or been assaulted. So we don't even know when for sure. And they're just going off of a hunch that his last cell phone records stopped, or his last phone calls were read at 9:30. But that doesn't mean that someone else didn't use his phone, like the person who unalived him. I don't know. All right, so Rosalio's friends and family report that they hadn't heard from him since May 17th. However, there is zero evidence proving what time he may have actually gone missing or been assaulted, outside of the fact that he stopped answering his phone. So it's not the strongest evidence. For all anyone knows, he may have fallen asleep on the couch for a while after drinking a couple of Coronas, since there were some beers left out in his apartment, and he wasn't assaulted until later that night or the next day. It's possible that he might have been assaulted any time after that 9:30 call, if they're saying it happened after those texts. So then it had to have been after 9:30, and why is there only a half-hour window that it had to have been done? We don't know that. What are they basing that on? Anyways, during that night in question, Rosalio told several conflicting stories about whom he was supposed to be spending his time with. So it is unclear who may have last seen or spoken to him. The last person to be known to have seen him was Kayla Petty, the mother of his daughter, when he dropped his daughter off at her house at 8:21 p.m., approximately 30 to 40, I'm assuming miles or minutes away from his own apartment. However, there are multiple parties he reported to be planning on seeing after that night, or during that evening. So the next actions he reported to be taking are as follows. Number one, he told Sadie via text he was going to hang out with Michael Campbell, his longtime friend. Two, he told Christy Raditz Ortiz, his son's mother, that he was going to see Eileen Knoll, his ex-girlfriend and current friend / employer. So that's two separate stories now that he's told two different people. He told Kim Lavora, a girl he met on Facebook dating via text, that he needed to drop off his kids and go to Menards. But this conversation happened after he had already dropped his kids off. So he was lying to her, obviously. So there's a third possible action that he would have taken that night. I can't think of the word. So it's a third thing. It's third action or place he was intending to go to or to do something there. So that's three different lies to three different people. And now four, he asked Narita Macias, another girl he met on Facebook dating, to meet him at his apartment at 9 p.m. for a first date. So you can assume that this is likely the truth because it's not contradicting anything, and he was asking her to meet him at his place, so he wouldn't have been hiding or at least lying in that sense. I don't know. So he lied to Sadie about hanging out with a guy friend. He lied to his son's mom about seeing an ex-girlfriend, and he lied to a girl he met on Facebook dating about going to Menards and dropping off his kids. So he could spend time with this Narita Macias, I guess, at 9 p.m. at his apartment for a first date, but unfortunately the first date never happens. This is May 17th. Okay. So remember, May 17th is the last time anyone hears or sees from him. He asks Narita to come to his place for a first date. As far as the crime scene shows, it appears as though Rosalio made it home after dropping off his children because police found that his TV still turned onto the Hulu loading screen, or was still turned onto the Hulu loading screen, I guess. There were a couple of Corona bottle caps on the counter near some cut limes. One Corona bottle was found in the kitchen trash, and another was found open and partially consumed on the TV stand in the living room. So he had at least 2 beers, potentially, if they weren't from another night. All right, so while Rosalio was planning to meet up with Narita, she had stated that she would prefer to just drink water so she wouldn't get a DUI. A water bottle was found in the kitchen trash can. Kitchen trash can. As well as one next to the open Corona bottle on the TV stand. However, Narita told PD that she never went into Rosalio's apartment because he didn't respond. Could it be that he was trying to get ready for her to come over and something happened to him? So she was about 40 minutes late to their meetup without notification, and this time discrepancy is unaccounted for. So she was late, and she didn't even tell him that she was going to be late. So she just showed up to his house 40 minutes late. The police did not investigate her further. That's kind of suspicious. She didn't tell him or call him or text him like, hey, I'm running late. I'll be there when I can. I guess not. So the police did not investigate her further, accepting only her statement of events and the screenshots that she took of her text conversation with Rosalio. So spatter of that red DNA substance that we all have was found throughout the apartment, mostly concentrated in the living room to the floor and the couch. Some drips and cast off were found on the outside of the front door, on the walls and ceiling of the living room, in the dining room, and a few on the kitchen counter. So there was something like somebody knocked on his door and barged in, and then there was some kind of scuffle. So the spatter that was tested throughout the apartment did test positive for Rosalio's DNA, so it is clear that he was the one that was attacked inside his own apartment. There was not enough of the red DNA present for the police to make the determination that he had been ended, that his life ended, although they could clearly see that he was attacked by some sort of blunt force and was, at the very least, severely injured. In fact, Rosalio was not declared deceased by any authority until after the verdict in Zach's trial. So they still had him as a missing person all the way up until the verdict of Zach's trial. Then the court issued a motion declaring him deceased by way of jury verdict. So there's that. All right, so however, aside from the fact that Rosalio himself was missing from the crime scene, there were some other curious things to note. Rosalio regularly wore glasses, and they were not found. Sorry. KPD theorizes that he was struck in the back of the head and or face with a blunt object, and there is no evidence that his glasses were broken in the attack. Like a fuzz or something on my lips. Itching. All right. So none of Rosalio's shoes were found in the apartment. Did he only own one pair of shoes? That's interesting. He didn't have any other shoes in the apartment? Was he still wearing them in the apartment to hang out and watch TV? That's a good question. The small rubber shoe mat was propped up leaning against the wall near the front door, and it had red DNA behind it to suggest that it had been placed there after the attack. So did the unaliver person, did they take all of his shoes and move the rubber mat? All the lights were turned off in the apartment. Why would the assailant take the time to turn the lights off after? Or did they attack him with the lights off? If so, that would suggest familiarity with the surroundings because nothing was knocked around or disturbed. It also could mean that it was daylight in the apartment and there was no need for any lights being turned on. If it was the next morning, it could have been. But it doesn't make sense that then if he was attacked and then didn't respond to what's her face, the girl, Narita. So I don't know. So did he get attacked before Narita came over? Before she was 40 minutes late? Do you suspect Narita has something to do with it? I don't know. I'm just asking questions. All right, so all the lights were turned off. To that point, nothing in the apartment appears to have been knocked around or disturbed like there was a struggle. Even if it was a surprise attack and not so much a wrestling match, a 6 foot 270 pound man would disrupt or disturb something if he got knocked out cold or fell. So most likely. The front door was locked. Evidence shows that it was open at some point during the attack, so someone had to have shut it behind them and locked it. The patio door was open, so they came in the front door, most likely, and then they left out the patio door, is what I am assuming from this. The patio door was open, but the patio screen door and blinds were closed. If Rosalio's body were carried out, as PD claims, the attackers would have had to return to the apartment just to shut the screen door and blinds behind them. So that means, like a very risky move that seems like a very risky move if you've possibly just been seen carrying a body. They had to have been closed after because there's no smears to them to suggest he was carried out between the closed blinds. So they're saying somebody closed the blinds afterwards because there was nothing on the blinds to suggest he had gone through the blinds. The aromatherapy diffuser, and this is strange. The aromatherapy diffuser in his living room was still running when the crime scene photos were taken by police. Approximately 12 p.m. on May 19th, roughly 38 to 40 hours after the proposed time when he was attacked. Most diffusers of this size have a runtime maximum of about 18 hours. So how was his diffuser running with water in it still? That's what's curious to me. Although Rosalio was a baseball coach, he had a son in baseball and mentioned buying a bat just days before the date in question. Not a single baseball bat was found inside his apartment. Could the attacker have used his own bat? The only way that is possible is if the person was already in his apartment to grab the bat. So could the attacker have just been in his apartment and then grabbed a bat that Rosalio had, or if he just mentioned buying a bat, could the attacker have picked up the bat that Rosalio had recently purchased and attacked him with it? Also, the rug normally in his living room was missing. Like I said, he had an area rug and it was gone. There was a tool bag sitting on the floor in front of the patio door with some tools laid out next to it. Whose tool belt is it? Again, if Rosalio was carried out the patio doors as is claimed, the attackers would have either had to step over it to carry out a 270-pound body, or they would have had to put it there after the attack. If so, where did it come from? So it almost seems like they're trying to say maybe Rosalio left on his own accord. Maybe he was attacked and not on his own accord, but left still alive, walking out with his assailants, perhaps. I don't know. Because the front door was locked up and the patio door still open, but in that manner. It's weird. Okay. So 2 small tables Rosalio used for coffee tables were moved from their original locations and placed partially in front of the patio door. But all of the items on top were still placed nicely, indicating that they had either been moved gently or everything they may have scattered in the attack was picked up and put back on the tables. That would be interesting. What kind of random assailant would bother taking cautious care of their victims' belongings? Or had they been moved prior to the attack, and if so, why? That's a good question. The dining room table, likewise, had been moved, but the items on top were still neatly placed, again indicating someone had taken care when moving it and that it wasn't just pushed around during a struggle. So if it had been moved around during a struggle, then, things would have flown off. And the only way for it to have been found in that manner would be for the assailant to put the items back where they thought that they were, which doesn't make sense to me that an attacker would do that. All right, so although the majority of the red DNA found was throughout the living room, there were some drips of blood on items located against the wall of the dining room. Based on the pattern, someone had to have been standing over the items, dripping that red DNA on them. So maybe he was still standing and dripping on the dining room table. So it must not have incapacitated him right away, the first blow to his head, I think. Who would have been back there dripping blood and why? The majority of the blood is fairly far away from this area. So maybe it was the assailant and they were dripping it from a cut or something that they sustained during the attack, because it's possible they could have been bleeding too. But I think it's more likely it could have been Rosalio still standing and him dripping on that table. So Rosalio's mother, Celia, claims that she found his cell phone and credit cards in his freezer a day after the police released the apartment from their protective custody, which begs the question, why did the police not find it? And why was it there in the first place? So his wallet had been found on the couch by police, is what this is saying. So did he have... Oh, his credit cards were in the freezer. But wallet was on the couch. Okay, so why would the attacker go through Rosalio's wallet to pull out his license and credit cards just to stash them in the freezer? If they did, why would his cell phone have been placed in there? If it was, who did that and why? There were no red DNA trails leading out of the apartment. If Rosalio's body had been carried out and it was dripping, surely there would have been a drip trail leading out, even if he was rolled in an area rug like the PD suggests. The police department suggests one of the edges of the rug would have also been saturated in the red DNA based on the amount of red DNA they found on the ground and in the living room. So he was profusely dripping. Excuse me. So that too would have likely been dripping. So that's where I'm going to leave you for this one. You got a good overview, background of the actual incident that took place. And now you're kind of familiar with the characters, who Rosalio is, Zachariah Anderson, and Sadie. So we are going to next get into the timeline, but I wanted to give you all the background. So hopefully this was helpful. Again, like I said, this website was created by Zachariah Anderson's family. So it may be biased. However, they really laid it out very well. I just want to give them some attention. It's free ZachariahAnderson.org. And they have, let me go to their homepage. They have everything laid out about Zach's case. And that's what I wanted to do, not that one. We just did that one. Or we started with that one. Go to Zach's case. It's very, very well put together and organized. They have, you can look at the incident, the cast of characters, the timeline, the investigation, evidence, unseen evidence. They even have links so you can go watch the trial yourself if you wanted to. You absolutely can. You can watch the interviews that took place with Sadie and Zach. So we're going to, like I said, next time get into the timeline. So buckle up, because I think that's going to be interesting. And I thank you so much for spending the last 40 something minutes with me. I appreciate it. And please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. It helps you get notifications when my videos come out, so that you can keep up to date on this particular case that I'm going to be doing, and others. So thank you so much for watching, and enjoy your day. Bye.